Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello, my guest is Peppur Chambers. She is an international writer, producer, and educator. She is a member of the Antaeus Playwrights Lab, and she uses her voice to amplify women's issues, social justice, and love. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Nancy, thank you. It's my pleasure as well. I'm so excited.
I thoroughly enjoyed listening to your play called 90027 Griffith Park, The Fire in Between, part of the Season 3 Zipcode plays by the Antaeus Theater Company, which you're doing over the internet where everybody can listen to radio drama. It was an exciting play about many different issues. You explored race, humanity, brotherhood. But let's start with the location, Griffith Park. It's one of the largest urban parks in the nation, just north of Los Angeles City Hall, in the city of Los Angeles. Tell us about this very special place.
Griffith Park is beautiful. I moved to Los Angeles in 2004 from New York, and I'm originally from Wisconsin. And I say all of that because I am sort of this nature girl at heart, but also love big cities. So when you walk into any part of Griffith Park, I feel that you just absolutely disappear and you can just become enveloped by it. Its own sort of beautiful, huge organism. And I just think it has such personality and energy. And I've always been mesmerized by Griffith Park. And once I started diving into the story, I had no idea that Griffith Park had so many things going on in it. In the 30s, for example, there was a girls group, there was a pool, there were all of these things. And I thought, my gosh, as Angelenos, this Griffith Park just sort of exists. And we drive around it, we drive through it, we sit and have picnics. It has so much history, and I'm just absolutely intrigued by it.
We're going to talk a little bit about the history that was the focus of your play, the 1933 fire in the park. Yet, let's delve a little bit more into this very incredible park, which is both natural and has man-made lawns, as you say, picnicking, but you can take hikes and you can see deer and coyote, and if you're lucky, a mountain lion, and so many other wildlife species. Or you can go to specific locations, whether or not it's the Griffith Observatory, the Autry Museum of Western Heritage, the Los Angeles Zoo, the Railroad Museum, the merry-go-round, so many different kinds of locations and activities in this park.
Yes, it's fantastic. It's amazing to hear even just that list of all of the things that you can do. And I love, for example, the railroad, and I just love that it exists. And the Griffith Park Observatory, it's so amazing. Whether you drive or walk up to the space, I love the trek to get up there. And then the building itself is so gorgeous. And walking inside, looking out, walking up to the top, at the top of the observatory and looking out over the expanse of Los Angeles and the park, it's gorgeous. It's a gift.
It's one of the best views of the entire city of Los Angeles and all the surrounding communities out toward the beach and the peninsula. But the park originally was home to the Native American Indians in the area, and you acknowledge those people. And then it belonged to some women back in the 1800s who wanted to keep it, but apparently lost it. Who were they?
Yes, that is a great question. I cannot remember the woman's name, but Verdugo is the last name. San Gabrielino Tongva is the people tribe, the tribe of people that are indigenous, I'll say, to the land and to the park. Later, there's a story that the Verdugo family, I will generally say, owned parts of the park. And this took a long time, several years, but they lost ownership of the park due to some additional laws that were brought apart by, I would just say generally, of people that did not want them to have it. And so through family generations having this park, and then unfortunately they did lose it. So I thought that was fascinating too. And I just love the fact that the last family member, for example, was a woman, and then her daughters were involved with it. And I just love this female energy trying to hold on to family property in the way that I interpreted the research I found.
Eventually, Colonel Griffith obtained the park, but he did donate most of the land to the city of Los Angeles so the public can now enjoy it.
Yes, I think that's amazing as well. And same thing, and I think it was sold for something interesting like $1 or something on top of, like it was like, this is going to the city of Los Angeles and I do not want it to be any other way. And I thought, oh my gosh, what forethought. And it is said that he was an eccentric man, so in my heart, I'm curious about why he chose to do it. I would love to have been a fly on the wall or sit and talk with him, but that is how Los Angeles has it, a part of the city now. So it's pretty amazing, I think.
When I moved to Los Angeles in the late 60s, I enjoyed going to the Love-Ins there in the merry-go-round area. And then in the late 70s, when I was in competitive running, I did a lot of 5 and 10K races around Griffith Park, and they're still being held there. Then I also, in the 60s, acquired my horse, which was in a stable across the river from the park, and rode my horse around the park. So I have enjoyed hiking in the park, going to the many different places, and I was saddened that when the park lost some of its land going down to the riverbed for a freeway, the whole ecosystem was destroyed because from the top of the park in the Santa Monica Mountains, it included the entire river ecosystem, and that was destroyed. I don't think we can get rid of the freeway, but we are trying to restore the river now, aren't we?
Exactly. Can't get rid of the freeway. And that's the part, too, because as well, I believe in the 30s and earlier, there were no roads going through Griffith Park. Not many roads, let's just say. So you bringing that up makes me think about how the park keeps getting
shrunken.
Yes. Can I ask you about your horses? It's amazing. I think some of those trails are fairly steep, aren't they?
Well, you have both the flat trail along the perimeter, and of course you have the steep trails going up to the top of the peak area, and where you could walk 50 miles from Griffith Park all the way to Ventura County along the Santa Monica Mountains. It's an incredible place. But one of the issues that you focused on in your play was a fire. And of course, we have to always worry about fires when we maintain the natural areas, and human development, housing, and other kinds of facilities are built next to natural areas. The fire in 1933 was pretty severe?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh, yes. It's chilling, actually. We live in Los Angeles. We know that there are fires around us all of the time. So I Googled Los Angeles fire and then the deadliest fire, and this particular fire, unfortunately, was the deadliest fire in this location. Because we are affected by fire so much, I have this feeling of what can we do, what should we be doing to stop this from happening over and over again. And it makes me think back to culture and indigenous people, and we know that there were practices that were done to avoid fire happening in a way that is out of control. I'm worried. Sometimes when I get worried about things, I'm like, how can we use our voice to speak about it? And when I found that this fire happened in October of 1933, I thought, oh my gosh, because so close. I mean, that's our back door. And then as I kept researching and finding that it was an interesting circumstance because the Santa Ana winds were huge that day. It was a 100-degree day in October. And on top of all of these men doing work in the park, but were not firefighters. And so when the fire broke out, they were inequipped, inexperienced to fight a fire in a place that was fire-rich.
You mentioned the workers in the park, and because 1933 was in the Depression, there was a work relief program and the Civilian Conservation Corps, and people were doing work in these locations. But you took two actors, a black and a Mexican American, to be those workers, and you incorporated some of their concerns and issues. Could you explain that significance?
Yes. In the research, I found someone out in the internet world had compiled all of the death certificates of the men that they were able to identify, and that's important because there were men there that they were not able to identify.
How many died?
That's the thing. No one really knows if there were 60 men or not. However, the number that I think everyone went with was 29 men, and those are the 29 death certificates that they have. Interesting about this program is that there were people there who they don't know who they were because they may have used someone else's work permit. Interesting information about if the straw bosses were padding the numbers of who was working, so were there less people or more. When I looked and then started investigating and reviewing the death certificates of these men, I realized I got a picture of who they were. Let's say a third of them were black. It was very interesting because in the description of these men, it would just said Mexican. Everyone was Mexican, and there was no delineation who they really were. And as I looked further and I saw, like, the parents, some people were Puerto Rican. They were a multitude of people. But the huge problem, as we know, just like whittling people down to one thing. And I thought that was fascinating. And then as I kept looking, there were Russians, there were Hungarians, there were white. It was an amazing mix of people that came together that day. And again, because of the Depression, leveling everyone in the way that we are also feeling now with the pandemic. It makes me emotional, but I wanted to pay homage to those people and to the people, to the families that they didn't go home to.
Obviously, we need to learn from the past. Hopefully, we will have better land use management, fire management to protect both the ecosystems and the people who are fighting those fires. Griffith Park is over 3,000 acres, and it has a vast history. I'm sure you could write some more plays about this area, the wildlife, the interactions between humans and the land. It was a great play, part of the Zipcode plays, season 3 with Antaeus Theater Company. Are you writing any other plays on any other environmental issues that we should pay attention to?
That's a great question, Nancy. I'm so inspired by this now. I am writing plays about other issues, like other social justice issues, but now that I've started writing about the environment and how it affects us, I'm looking. My brain is racing, looking for that next story.
There's so many. I look forward to your future plays, and the production value is just wonderful. The actors, I felt as though I was watching and listening to them in person, even though it was over the computer.
Oh gosh, stunning, right? The sound quality, and that's why I was so excited. I knew that we would be able to capture the fire as another character, which our sound designer Jeff did beautifully. And like you said, the actors so intense and so gorgeous and beautiful, and you feel like you get to know them, and then there's this tragedy. And I appreciate what you said, and you can hear my voice. I love this piece for so many reasons, and it just means everything to me and to Antaeus, and I really hope that when people listen, that it touches them in the way that it has touched all of us.
It certainly touched me. Thank you so very much for making it available to us. You have focused most of your work on women's issues, social justice, and now the environment. But it really is so connected. Where do you see the connections?
Great question. The connection is in, I believe, in perseverance and in recognition. So when I say perseverance of identity, perseverance of life, perseverance of wanting to be seen, and perseverance of the hopes and dreams. That goes for people, and I think it goes for nature and the environment as well. How can we live the best? How can we keep striving to regenerate? How can we be seen and participate? And so perseverance is one side of it. And the other side is, I like to call this concept of living your best life. How do we live our best? And we can only live our best by recognizing that we must take care of people. We must take care of nature. We must take care of nature. Or what else are we doing here? How do we find our way into that and not making things worse for others and for nature? And so that's how they're all connected.
Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much. It's been beautiful. Thank you.
I have been speaking with Peppur Chambers, who is a writer, producer, educator, and writer of the play 90027, Griffith Park, The Fire in Between. I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.